Hi, everyone. John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com, the premier site for learning bass online. We are here with a special guest. He is a bass player, he's a composer, he's a producer, record label founder, and so much more. My old friend, Joesph Patrick Moore. How are you, Joesph?
Man, I'm great, John. It's such an honor to be with you today.
Well, thank you. How did you, I just thought, how did you come to be so formal with the three names,
Uh,
Joesph Patrick
see,
Moore?
that was a mistake of mine. Blame my mama. Blame mother. No, in high school, people called me Joey, and I always thought the baby kangaroo. And then some people called me Joe, and no disrespect to the Joes out there, but to me, it's like some guy in Texas with a big belt buckle wearing chili or something. It was like, nah, I'm not Joe. And so I don't know, man. I just went with Joesph Patrick Moore, my first CD, and then it was just like, then it was too late. I was kind of stuck with it. But I've learned over the years that was a mistake, because if you think about just go down Sting, Flea, Edge, Bono, you just,
Liberace,
right, Liberace, throw him in there.
Madonna.
Madonna, but like the one word thing just really like has a more of an impact, I think, and so anyway, it is what it is at this point. But yeah, some people refer to me as JPM, and that's cool. I'll go by Al. You can call me Al, in the words of Paul Simon. So
It's the mass murderers that get the three names.
no, well, shh. Don't tell anyone.
All right. I was reading up. We did an interview. We did an online thing. I used to do them with emailing questions, and then you'd fill them out, send them back. That's how I started at the very beginning. The interview that we did on for BassPlayersOnly.com was published May 10th, 2010.
Wow, that's frightening. 12 years ago. Yeah. Wow.
And you were talking about Rusty Holloway, Jerry Coker, Herb Ellis, Blue Canoe Records, the label that you founded, and the album that had just come out at the time was To Africa with Love, which I've played a million times. I love that record.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So bring us up to date with a few of the highlights, anyway, of what you've been up to. What's been keeping you busy over the last 12 years?
Wow. Yeah. I'll try to make it brief. That's a lot to unpack. So right around that
That's
time.
why I said highlights.
Yeah. Okay. Highlights. You got it. Right after around that time of when I put out that album, I got the gig with. It was temporary, and I knew that going into it. But I toured with Earl Klugh, the jazz guitarist.
I know. Well, I'm from Detroit, so I know.
That's right. He's from Detroit. That's right. And I worked with Bob James some during that time. Then did some various studio projects, gigs, whatnot. And then I worked with this group called the Rocktronics, and we put together a CD, and we also did a movie that you can rent on iTunes. Actually, it's a documentary. It's like 45 minutes long of us in the studio recording the album. And it's cute and all that. That band kind of dismembered. We kind of it fell apart for 1,000 reasons. And then just fast forward, I was working in Atlanta, out of Atlanta, and then in 2017, my wife and I decided to leave Atlanta. And so I'm actually in Henderson, Nevada, which is right outside of Las Vegas. I can actually see the Strip if I go out my front door on the hill out here. But so we've been here now for 5 years. And right shortly after getting here, I got a gig, a temporary gig with Cirque du Soleil. I was actually on a show called Ka at the MGM, and I was a sub for Derek Jones. And Derek Jones is an amazing bass player. He's worked with Jerry Douglas. Nickel Creek was kind of his big gig he had for a while. And then COVID hit, and then that all ended. And then just recently, I auditioned for another Cirque du Soleil gig in October, and I actually got the gig. And I'm a full-time bassist on the show called Mystere, and I'm playing 2 shows a night, 9:30, Friday through Tuesday.
So my wife and I saw that show in I think it was around 1998 in Vegas.
You saw Mystere?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I think if I'm correct on this, and I think I am, I believe Mystere is the longest Cirque du Soleil residency show. I think it was the first one, and I think this is the 28th or 30th year of it. So there's been 3 or 4 bass players that have played that show through the years. So anyway, so that's kind of where everything's at. But we're living here. We've been here 5 years. Love it here.
Well, you said you moved out there and then you got a gig. So you didn't have anything lined up. You just packed up and moved and had the confidence that something would come up.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. I mean, yes, I was. Honestly, it was a leap of faith. It was just kind of like a God thing. It was like, all right, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was just, I was rolling the dice, so to speak, in Vegas terms. It was just kind of like, we'll see what happens. But I had worked enough through the years that we had saved enough money to where we had a cushion for at least a year or so. So I knew I had some time to meet people and do da-da-da. And I should also interject something too. So I built a home studio and I have put out a couple other recording projects since then. I've done a lot of mixing, playing on other people's albums. So while I was meeting people in town and trying to navigate the new landscape, so to speak, I was still, doing remote sessions through a lot of producer friends of mine and musicians in Atlanta and elsewhere. And so I was still kind of working, but just from home, so to speak. But yeah, it was a total leap of faith, but I did not move here for that. And I actually had no intentions of ever even contemplating doing that kind of a gig. Not, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity, amazing gig, and I'm very grateful, but I didn't move out here for that. It just, things just kind of fell. It's just the way the cards fell,
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's got to be. I've never seen a bad show or a bad sounding show in Vegas. So it's.
Well, the state, what I've learned here, John, it's like a lot of places, but how do I say this? It's the level's pretty high in terms of you really can't have a bad night, because if you do, you're not going to be there very long. You know what I mean? And so the pressure it's a pressure cooker. I mean, I know New York's like that. Everywhere's like that. You've got to be on all the time. But here, particularly because there's so much going on, that and I'm just talking as a bass player or musician. I'm just talking just generally a production, a show, whatever, or a restaurant, whatever. If you have a couple bad nights, you're not going to be around very long. So it's just too much competition, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
you remind me of a joke, and I
tell it. I am a joke. Tell it to me, man.
These two musicians are talking, and a guy says, "Hey, I got called by Quincy Jones is scoring a film, and he wants me to play on it and produce and arrange and all this stuff. Did you hear about that?" He says, "No, I didn't." He says, "Oh, well, you know what else? Steven Spielberg contracted me, and I'm going to do all this work and all this big time stuff for him. Did you hear about that?" He says, "No, I didn't." And he goes on with like 1 or 2 other incredible examples. And he says, "Oh, how you doing otherwise?" He says, "I don't know. I was playing this little club last night, and we were playing The Song Is You. And I was taking a solo, and I messed up on the bridge." The guy said, "I heard about that."
That's awesome. Yeah, of course. Word travels fast in the small community of music.
Let's talk about, I think it was a joke. I don't know. It might be.
Yeah, no.
Let's talk about Blue Canoe Records, which you started in, I think, around 2003 or 6.
Yeah, that's approximately right. 3. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when we spoke in 2010, you said you had a roster of 28 artists and over 30 recordings. I'm guessing that those stats are woefully outdated.
Yes, they are. So just a brief history of it. So back in '96, I released my first solo album project called Never Neverland. And at that time, it was like, I want to try to get a record deal, whatever that, was worth. And so I got one of those books at Barnes & Noble that, the 100 record label addresses and mailed out letters all over the place. Never heard a word, and a couple rejection letters and all that. And so that went on for a couple years. And then fast forward into 2000, I continued to put out some solo projects, and I tried again, and nothing, crickets. But one person responded, and it was the great Peter Erskine. And Peter Erskine, I still have the letter, actually. It was an email. I still have it. It's very short. But he basically said, "Joesph, Fuzzy Logic, his label is he's not, they're taking on new projects, but the time is now. You need to do it now. The digital revolution's here, you know. And this was actually right before iTunes launched and Apple got into the MP3 players and all that. It was like right there. And so we had just done a project, me and William Ellis on drums and Sean Perkinson on guitar. We did a project called the EMP Project. It was like a jazz trio. And so anyway, long story short, we got so frustrated with the process, but we took Peter's words of encouragement and we just said, you know what? Kind of been down this road a few times, so let's just do it ourselves. Let's just put it out. And so we did, mailed them out, post office, all the typical stuff. And then it's just slowly morphed into a friend would ask me, say 2005, would say, hey, I know you put out stuff before. Can you tell me about publishing or copyrights, or can you help me with this? And I was like, sure. And it's just, man, I had never had intentions of ever trying to start a label or be involved with a label. In fact, I'm trying to walk away from it as much as I can, but still be involved in it. But so anyway, long story short, it's just evolved over all these years. So you cited those stats. Well, now I think we're up to over 100 releases, and I want to say maybe 60 artists at this point. And a lot of that is tributed to the great Jimmy Haslip. So
I was waiting for Jimmy's name to come up.
Yeah, so Jimmy's a big responsibility of this, man. So back in another long story, I won't bore you with, but
a friend of mine played the bass. He doesn't even hold it right. He plays it backwards.
It's so weird to me. I love Jimmy, but man, it's so weird to see him play it backwards.
Well, no, the thing that's weird about it is he doesn't string it like a lefty. He would take your bass or my bass and turn it upside down, and he slaps. And I don't know how in the world he does that, but he does.
Yes, he does, and it's amazing. He's incredible. Thing about Jimmy is he's not only obviously. I would say an icon, a legend in a lot of ways, but an incredible musician, producer, writer, all that. But he's just a great person and just a really good champion of musicians. And he's just a good soul, dude. And he's just like the sweetest guy. And it's just like, I love that guy, you know. Anyway, so I could go on about
Jimmy. I interviewed him was in his living room, sitting on his couch with him. So yeah, very welcoming. His wife was very nice, you know.
Yeah, Nancy, she's a sweetheart. Yeah, they're just great people, man. And I'm just honored to have had that connection with him. And so yeah, so in 2017 when I moved here, we got a friend connected me, and so honestly, I'll tell you the truth. I talk to Jimmy about once a week. And I have for the last 3.5, 4 years. But so he started inquiring about the label, and so we built up a friendship, and then basically said, hey, I got this project I'm producing. Would you want to put it on your label? And it was like, okay. And then so Jimmy basically at this point is kind of, I would say, a big integral part of Blue Canoe Records. He's not necessarily like on staff or working for the label, but I would call him basically a producer for the label. So at this point, he's just shuffling over projects and saying, are you interested in this? And basically everything he gives me, I'm just like, yes. I don't even listen to it. I mean, I do, but it's like, dude, I don't even need to hear it. If you're yes, the answer is yes, Jimmy. Just keep sending them over. So the thing is just constantly, and it's getting to a point now, John, where it's almost starting to spin out of control, where it's almost becoming unmanageable. So I'm trying to figure this out for myself, because one thing I guess I've learned as I've gotten older, you know, it's great to be, to have a lot of assets and a lot of things, a lot of, what do you say, tools in the toolkit, so to speak, and a lot of, you know, being able to do a lot of different things. But at some point, I do think you have to narrow down your focus into this is what you do. Because, you know, the old saying, jack of all trades, a master of none. Yeah. I mean, I've always been a utilitarian, you know, learning how to play a blues, a funk, a Latin, you know, upright, electric, all that stuff, read music, all that. But at some point, I think that you have to focus on something. And so I feel like I'm kind of all over the place. And I'm trying to rein that back down into more of a strict focus, you know. Yeah, but yeah, so Blue Canoe is just, it's alive and going, dude. It's amazing. And I'm very honored. And I can't even believe some of the artists on the label. I'm just like, I can't even believe I'm associated with some of these people. It's crazy, man. It's just,
I see the promo stuff you send me, which I appreciate, and it's great. And I do download some of there's an album, Red Heat, I think, Jimmy Haslip.
So Jimmy had re-released, just recently actually, re-released a couple of his solo projects. One's called Red Heat with Joe Vanelli, and another one called Nightfall.
Right.
with Giovanelli, and those are beautiful albums.
Yes, they are.
And then he released an art trio with Scott Kinsey on keys and Gergo Borlai on drums. And he's got a new one coming out this summer. Or actually, excuse me, it might be the fall, but it's a follow-up to that, and it's called Archaeology. And it's the music of M.S. Schmidt, and it features the John Diversa Big Band, and it's Jimmy, Scott, Gergo, and the cast of people. And he's done many other projects that are personally his, but a lot of the things he's bringing to the label, he's more of a producer or playing bass on a track or two or something like that, you know. So
well, you mentioned the show and the sessions and all that stuff, but generally speaking, what else is keeping you busy these days?
Well, I'm trying to stay creative, you know, and that's part of my dual lifestyle. I'm very grateful now that I have a steady gig, and you know, it's amazing. I'm really loving it, man. It's really intense on so many levels. It's so high pressure. I don't think I've ever been under the pressure cooker like I have with this Cirque du Soleil gig for 1,000 reasons. But so in the midst of that, that's now allowed me some opportunity to financially anyway, to where I can step back and really not worry where the next gig is coming from or the tour or whatever project. I'm just trying to grow as a composer and all that, and just try to be creative, you know, and use the bass as the vehicle to express myself. You know.
What kind? I see an upright there. I think I see a few electrics. I see what looks like an NS Design electric upright. Tell me about your basses.
Okay, so I have the double bass, of course. That's a Czechoslovakian bass. But yeah, so I play the upright, of course, and then I have the Padula 5-string MVP, and then a buzz, the fretless, which is the 5-string, and those two I do in the Cirque show. Anyway, so there's that, and then there's a 4-string Fender Jazz that I bought on tour in Daytona, Ohio, I believe. And then that's a MTD fretless bass, 4-string next to that.
MTD, and Mike Tobias?
Yeah, I love that bass. I actually used to belong to Derek Jones. That's my story. Those are my...
The NS Design electric upright.
So one of the gigs I did with Earl was we played the Eric Clapton Crossroads Festival right around the Africa with Love CD that came out. It was 2010, and Earl, part of the gig with Earl was because he plays a nylon string guitar, and part of his deal is he wants upright and electric, and you're switching back and forth, so you have to be a doubler to play his show. But he didn't want a real upright because of feedback problems, and we were playing in a soccer stadium, and it was too risky to bring in an upright. So he's like, well, why don't you try one of these electric uprights? Because then we don't have to worry about feedback, and you'll still kind of get that sound, and you'll be... So anyway, I had another one and it was okay, but I knew I needed something better for this show. So I called NS Design, and I told them the situation, and so they sent that to me. And the guys were so cool at NS. They were really nice people, and said, hey, we're just going to send this to you, play the show, and if you like it, then we can talk about, you know, figuring out how to pay for it and all that sort of thing. And you can't really see it, but there's like 5 knobs on the side, and each string has its own pickup. Well, I got it the day before this show, and I hadn't had a chance to play it yet.
It's a 4-string, it looks like?
It's a 4-string, yeah. So the first time I actually even heard the bass and played it was at Crossroads. I plugged into the amp, and I was like, oh God, what do these knobs do? Okay, that's the volume, good. All right, what do these other ones do? Oh, I don't know, but let's just put them in the 12 o'clock, okay. And so the first time I played that, man, was right on that show, and somehow I got through the gig, and it actually sounds surprisingly good. And I haven't. So anyway, but it was a weird experience, fun, nerve-wracking, all at the same time. You know, playing an instrument in front of so many people, and you don't even know what it's going to sound like, much less the way it's going to feel or play, you know.
There's nothing like those. I've had the privilege of interviewing Ned a couple of times, and
nice
getting to know the folks. I don't know who you dealt with, Gary Byers or Corey Redonant.
Corey, that's who I've worked with, Corey. They're great people, man. Super nice. I've never talked to Ned, but no, Corey's who I've dealt with, but yeah, just super sweet people, and they're just awesome. Can't say enough good things about that company.
Yeah. I want to ask you about learning bass because for bass players only, we've got a lot of interviews, over 800, but we're really a bass instruction site.
Yeah.
We've got people from all over the world coming to For Bass Players Only every day to learn to play bass. So I want to take this opportunity to ask you what advice you have for somebody who wants to learn bass. These are mostly not career-bound people. It's mostly older people in their 50s, 60s, 70s sometimes. They could be retired or they've always wanted to do it or they dabbled in it. They love the stuff from the 60s and 70s and the classic rock and blues shuffles and soul and all of those things. And in that kind of framework, in that context, what advice do you have for someone who wants to learn bass?
Well, it's an amazing question, but before I answer, let me just say, you were doing a retrospect with me from 2010. Let me just say, since that time, just to watch what you've done with your websites and your company, man, it's staggering and mind-blowing and inspirational. And your books, too. I've actually got a couple of your books, and I can't recommend those enough. You're just an amazing obviously amazing teacher, amazing player, great person. I mean, you just got everything going on. So I just want to compliment you, what you're doing for not only who knows who, people you will never hear from in your life, but you're touching people and making a difference. You're really making a difference, and you're just done great things with the bass community. So I just want to commend you for that, for starters. But
thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words, and you inspire me very much as well.
I appreciate it, man. I do what I can. But no, I go to your site frequently, and I've read a lot of your lessons, and I've watched a lot of videos and interviews. And so anyway, just want to commend you for that. To answer your question, about someone who's wanting to learn, the fun aspect has to be first. And then as that fun becomes, then you start realizing, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just moving my hands. I'm following the tab, or I'm doing whatever. Then hopefully that'll motivate someone to say, I really want to know what that note is, or I really want to know what scale goes with this chord. Hopefully that'll motivate somebody into getting deeper into the educational side and the theory stuff and putting it all together. If they're young, I think you could go, look, you got to learn C major scale, good hand position. This is how we're going to start and kick butt from the beginning. But someone who's later in life, I think it's got to start with the fun factor, and then hopefully that'll gravitate into getting deeper into learning all the other things that you and myself have learned early on.
At that age, nobody picks it up because they have to, and they're probably not trying to make a career out of it because they've been working in an office or a corporate environment or something, and now they're doing it because they've always wanted to. And now they have a chance to do it. And older people have more discipline in general than,
right.
It's, I'm doing this because I want to do it and have enough life experience to know that I got to put in the time, but not because I have to, but because I want to.
But that's the key. That's exactly right. And if it starts from that place, then I think it's a win for everybody. And it's never too late. You could be 90 years old and want to learn something. The learning never stops.
You are more than just a bass player. You're a producer, arranger, and entrepreneur, and record label founder, and all of those things. But what would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music.
That's a great question. Probably two things. I always wanted to play baseball. I'm not much of a sports guy. I've kind of gotten out of sports as I've gotten older for a lot of reasons. But when I was a kid, I played baseball, and in high school, I was on the varsity team when I was a freshman and played second base, pitched a little bit. And so I was really pursuing baseball pretty hardcore. And then at the same time, I was doing actually marching band. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, you got baseball season, you got marching band season. There were some conflicts here. You're going to have to make a decision. And so I was like, in my thought process at the time, money wasn't even registering to me. I was just thinking, okay, if I go to baseball and if I'm lucky enough to go that avenue and never get hurt and the cards line up, I'll have to retire when I'm 40-ish. If I play music, I can play when I'm 100. Look at Willie Nelson and B.B. King and the singer. Anyway, so that was my passion went to the music. But if it wasn't music, I would have pursued baseball. Who knows what would have happened? The only other thing I think would have been maybe acting, and that's something I've kind of discovered in the last, say, 5 or 10 years. I really love movies, and why do I, and really study actors. So that's got me intrigued. I probably would have been a baseball player or an actor.
Well, it's so great catching up to you. Let's catching up with you. Catching up to you? Yeah.
Right.
Let's not wait another 12 years before we do it again. Congratulations on all your success. And you do. I mentioned you inspire me. You actually do, with all the stuff that you've done and just listening to you talk and the way that you think. And it's really enjoyable to listen to you. It's inspiring.
Oh, John, you're a sweetheart, man. I really appreciate it. And like I said, man, what you're doing for the bass community and beyond is staggering, dude. It's just, you're making such an impact. And like I said, you'll probably never know the impact you've made, but trust me, you are. Yeah. And I'm one of those guys you've made an impact on. So just kudos to you and what you're doing. And I really, really, really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. Much luck and continued success to you. So let's keep in touch.
All right, we'll do it. Absolutely.
All right, with our special guest, Joesph Patrick Moore. I'm John Liebman. You're watching the premier site for learning bass online, for basspleyersonly.com. I'm John Liebman. Once again, let's play bass.